Hey everybody, this is Maxine Taylor with my astrological forecast for the United States for September 2023. And I'm going to be talking about the new moon and the full moon, but I want to call your attention to a special I'm offering that I think you might want. It is a super blue moon special. In this special, I will take the positions of the new moon and the full moon in your birth chart for the next 6 months. This is a fabulous way to plan for your future. As you may know, on the dark of the moon, there's no moon. You can't see it. 2 days after the dark of the moon starts growing. And it keeps growing and keeps growing until 2 weeks later, it becomes a full moon. And that's when things pop. That's when things take shape. They explode if you want them to. So between the time of the new moon, which is right after we have the dark of the moon, for 2 weeks, the moon grows. People are energized. They're having fun. They're active. It's all this good stuff. Then we have the full moon when things come to a head. And then the next 2 weeks, the moon wanes until once again, with the low energy, we're in the dark of the moon. I am going to give you these dates. Excuse me. I'm going to interpret the new moon and the full moon for you for the next 6 months, and that's going to include the eclipses in October. So if you are interested, just go to my website, MaxineTaylor.com, and take advantage of this special. Okay, now let's talk. I better put my glasses on so I can see what I'm gonna say. Let's start with the sun. The sun is the giver of life. It's the center of everything. And in a mundane chart, such as the chart of a country, the house positions are, the houses themselves are a little different from the houses in your birth chart. Same houses, different interpretations, okay? I'm going to share the interpretations for a mundane reading with you, because reading the chart of a country is considered a mundane reading. The sun is still the center of life. It has been and will continue to stay in the 4th house until the 6th of the month, when it moves into the 5th house. Now, let me tell you about this 4th house. It's very timely. First of all, it rules the weather. Need I stop? I mean, look at what the world has been going through. The United States has had fires, it's had droughts, and it's got flooding like crazy. That's the weather. The 4th house also rules real estate. It rules the party out of power. And so here's the sun shining on the party out of power, which in this case would be the Republican Party. And there's a lot of activity there. As I said, it rules the weather. It rules domestic affairs. It rules land. We have had landslides. We have everything I'm describing. We have already seen and will probably continue to see it. It rules farmers, builders, our crops. We know that we're having a problem because the prices of our food, for example, are increasing. And it rules seniors. Okay, on the 6th, it moves into the 5th house. Now, in your birth chart, the 5th house is fun and games. Well, guess what? In the United States chart, It's still fun and games. And a lot of people find great fun in either participating in or observing sports. So let me tell you about I love it. I'm just looking at the sun on Neptune. Oh my goodness. So I'll get to the new moons and the full moons in a minute. In the fifth house, the sun lights up children, and there have been a lot of issues with children, some of them very sad. It does rule sports and fun, gambling, the theater. It rules the birth rate, okay? It rules congressional and public hearings. Here we go. Congressional and public hearings, stadiums and teachers. Okay, so you can see that this is a very important place right now with everything going on, with the indictments against Trump, and just all kind of things coming to a head. We have Neptune in the fifth house. Neptune can be make-believe, it can be obfuscation, or it can be the dream come true. And so with the sun on Neptune, Americans want to play more than ever right now. And sports are vitally important. People getting real worked up over them. The fifth house is also children. And there, whenever I see Neptune in a personal chart, it is the dream come true, which is gorgeous. In a mundane chart, that rules millions of people. And so what we're looking at here is perhaps not telling the truth, perhaps in those congressional hearings, or not seeing things clearly. And that will come to light right around the 6th of the month. The sun is going to be activating Neptune. Now we have a new moon. And on the new moon, which will be the 14th of the month, excuse me, I misspoke. The sun will sit on Neptune on the 15th. It'll start on the 14th. So by mid-month, everything I have just described will come to light. If there have been untruths told, the sun, the giver of life, will light them up to be dealt with. It can also be a dream come true for a sports team. Now, the new moon is on the 14th, and that's when everything starts growing. Energy starts growing. And so this fifth house really comes alive. This new moon is in 22 degrees of Virgo. Look for that in your birth chart, and it will tell you where everything starts moving forward. Okay, now 2 weeks after the new moon, we have a full moon, and it's in the 11th house. Now, in your birth chart, the 11th house is friends, hopes, and wishes, and it's quite lovely. In a mundane chart, that fifth house deals with Congress. It deals with congressmen and legislature. It rules with the treasury. It also rules city and county councils. So in light of all the indictments that have come down, this fits perfectly. It does deal with the Friends of the United States, which is really beautiful, I think. So this full moon is on the 29th of the month, and it is in 6 degrees of Aries. Aries is a sign of action. Let's do it now. That's what Aries says. Look for 6 Aries in your birth chart, and you will have the picture for you. Okay, now Venus, the planet of love and money, is going to, it's retrograde now. And we're all feeling Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde. Everything is confused. This is a time of tying up loose ends. Okay? You don't want to start a new project. You want to tie up the loose ends of unfinished business. Okay. On September 3rd, Venus goes direct. Awesome. Mercury is also retrograde. So we've had a tag team. I'll get to Mercury in a minute. Venus has been sitting in our third house. Now, in a mundane chart, the third house rules news media, people in the news. It rules communication. And so there's been a lot of really good information that we've had from news people who are, I want to say, clear-sighted. Venus is love. Venus is the lesser benefic. And so it blesses us wherever we are. And so the news can be quite positive this month. I just think this is terrific. Okay, I'm going to do it this way. Venus in the third house deals beautifully with newsmen, with mail, with public opinion, with traffic. Oh my goodness. There is progress being made because of unfortunate situations. I'm thinking of the trains that we have seen that have been involved in accidents. Venus is blessing that situation. Thank goodness. It rules, the third house rules newspapers. Do people still read newspapers? Books, traffic, as I said, neighborhoods, schools and teachers, and public transportation. And so inroads can be made. Now, Venus is going to move into that fourth house that I described earlier when the sun was in the fourth house. And so Venus blesses and brings light and love to that fourth house for the rest of September. And once again, that's real estate. That is the party out of power. It's domestic affairs of all types. It's weather. There should be an improvement in the weather. Land, farmers, builders, crops, and seniors. So this is looking good. And when Venus goes direct, we can start new projects. Super terrific. Now, let's talk about Mercury. Mercury is retrograde. It is going to go direct on the 15th, a little bit after Venus. Wherever Mercury is, that's what we think about and talk about. That's what's in the news, all right? Mercury has been in the fourth house. So this fourth house has been really busy. Again, the party out of power, a lot of talking, a lot of sharing of ideas. And with Venus in the fourth house, we can expect good news and truth. But I'll get into that in a minute. Back to Mercury. So it will go direct on the 15th. And so there is more talk amongst people about the weather, about real estate, about all of our domestic affairs, the land itself, how we can improve it, crops, seniors, everything I've been talking about. We will be talking about it. Then on the 24th, Mercury moves into that fifth house of fun and games. Now remember, Mercury does not take action. It sees it and talks about it. It communicates. And so it is sitting in that fifth house of fun and games, of children, and how to protect our children. I would certainly hope would come up. It deals with fun because it's the fifth house, the theater, congressional and public hearings. Okay, guys, we are talking about what's going to be happening at these congressional meetings. On the 30th of the month, Mercury, the planet of communication, sits on Neptune, wishful thinking, dreaminess, hopes and wishes, and there's a lot of chatter, a lot of communication, particularly because we're having congressional and public hearings. Fits perfectly with the timeline. And last but not least, Mars, well, there are two things I want to talk about. Let me jump up here to the retrograde and get it taken care of. Jupiter is going to go retrograde on September 4th. Now, Jupiter is the greater benefic. It brings blessings. It brings money. It brings truth. It brings exaggeration. Now, it is going to be in this 12th house for several months. Jupiter moves slower than Mercury and Venus, and certainly the sun and the moon. So when it goes retrograde, it stays retrograde for a while. It will be retrograde until December 31st. So that it's not going to be moving forward. It will be backing up and redoing things of a 12th house nature. So let me tell you what the 12th house rules in a mundane chart. Okay. It rules bribery and spies and hidden enemies. It rules prisons and jails. Now, it could very well be that some of our United States citizens who have been held in foreign jails, there can be progress made. I don't know how much progress because Jupiter is retrograde. However, after Jupiter goes direct, which will be at the very end of December, there will be blessings in those areas I've described, but there are more. So again, bribery, spies, hidden enemies, prisons, jails, criminals, charitable organizations, hospitals, institutions of seclusion, charitable organizations, secret societies, and welfare. In other words, the 12th house is behind the scenes. We're not going to see it. There may be indications that there is progress made behind the scenes, but everybody's got a 12th house, and every country has a 12th house. But Jupiter being the greater benefic, it's truth. And there'll be a gathering of news and accumulation of news. There will be attempts to bring about expansion and abundance in a good way in behind the scenes activities. So fingers crossed, guys. Okay, now Mars, the red planet. Mars is action and energy. Mars is what comes first to us. Mars is what we fight with and fight for. It's sitting on the planet Saturn. Saturn is reality. Now, Saturn in traditional old-timey astrology can deal with fear. I like to think of Saturn as responsibility. And my definition of responsibility is respond to your ability as a leader. And when I'm speaking of a country, respond, my fellow Americans, to your responsibility, responding to your ability as a leader when it comes to children, when it comes to all things that deal with the fifth house. And once again, that would be children, sports, fun, gambling, theaters, the birth rate, public hearings, stadiums, congressional meetings and hearings. You get the picture. So let me see if I can do this without getting you dizzy. Neptune is in the fifth house, maybe obfuscating. That's a great word. The sun is in the fifth house, shining a light on obfuscation. Okay. Saturn goes directly for it and says, let's talk about what's really going on. Let's make it real. And this is what we will see during the month of September when it comes to congressional hearings, etc. So, quite a month, huh? I am waiting with bated breath for Mercury and Venus to go direct, because that is when things will start moving forward. So I hope that you have enjoyed the forecast, and come back next month. I'll talk about it again. Until then, this is Maxine Taylor, America's first licensed astrologer, saying, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours. Bye for now.